Hello again. I observed that a new campaign by the Scottish Government, under the auspices of Public Health Scotland, to encourage women to have smear tests to detect the early signs of cancer of the cervix, has decided not to mention women in their advertisements. Instead, they are offering tests to anyone with a cervix, aged between 25 and 64 years. As usual, I give a link to this in the description to this video. Elsewhere in it, they say that NHS Scotland has identified a number of people who may have been incorrectly excluded from cervical screening following a hysterectomy. Notice they talk of people, not women. The reason for all this coyness is that the word woman has now become objectionable to many progressive and with it types. They would rather refer to them as people with a cervix. A few weeks ago, the British medical journal The Lancet did an issue about women's health, only they did not dare refer to it as such for fear of causing offence to some men. Instead, the cover of that edition, which may be seen in the thumbnail to this video, has a statement about bodies with vaginas, which is the new trendy way of referring to women. People with cervixes, bodies with vaginas. Many viewers will probably, like me, find all this very offensive. Why should we define women in this way by their genitals? People with cervixes, body with vaginas? Here's something to think about. Has anybody seen a move afoot to erase men in this way and to talk instead of people with prostates? Of course we haven't. That's because whatever the supposed motive behind this erasure of women to protect the supposed sensitivities of transsexuals, this is really no more than our old friend misogyny. After all the progress against sexism made since the 1960s, I little thought that I would live to see the day that it would be thought wrong even to say the very word woman. What is behind this business? It is, of course, men, or I suppose I should refer to them in the interest of equality now as people with penises. After, if we're going to define women as by their genitals as people with cervixes or vaginas, I suppose we really ought to talk about people with penises instead. Some people with penises want to wear women's clothes and be regarded as women, rather than be treated according to their biological sex. Well, that's fine with me. It's entirely a matter of personal choice, and if somebody with a penis wishes to wear a dress and be called Mary rather than Dave, I couldn't personally care less. It's none of my business. The problem is, though, that some of these people with penises are very aggressive in their demands, and it's not enough that others should simply accept them for who they are and let them get on with their lives, which I think is what most of us feel towards them. They wish to have access to all the places where people with cervixes are accustomed to having some privacy, like changing rooms, showers and public lavatories. In short, they feel they are being discriminated against because they have penises and not cervixes. For them, just using the word woman can make them feel excluded. The consequence is that in order to avoid upsetting a fairly tiny number of people with penises and prostates, nobody must mention women. Without wishing to generalise, I have noticed that people with penises and prostates have historically tended to be a little bit more aggressive and pushy than those with cervixes. They have often been a little dismissive of people with cervixes and tried to keep them out of the way. To an objective observer, this looks very much as though what is now happening. In the case of the advertising encouraging people with cervixes to come forward for screening, this squeamishness about using the word women is certainly going to cost lives. The reason is simple. A survey in 2017 found that 43% of women were unable to correctly identify the cervix as the neck of the womb. In other words, if you word an appeal for women to come and take a test so vaguely that women don't know that it specifically refers to them, then what will happen is that some will not bother to book appointments. Some of these people will then go on to die of cancer of the cervix. This trend to define women by their genital organs is not only grossly offensive, it's likely to kill women. But then, since this will not affect people with prostates, perhaps that's not a matter of great importance.